Blog Talk Radio.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, for a minute there I thought I was on a bus to a FEMA camp.
Yeah, that's what it sounded like, didn't it? But, okay, we are online, we are recording everything here, and my guest is John Kamenski today, and if you tuned in earlier, go back to the website or talk show, you'll get the essence of, you'll get, first of all, you go to my website, you'll get the link to Nightmare Days Are No Longer Just a Bad Dream, and it's how it turns to terror, fear slides into panic, yet we dare not speak the name of the monster poisoning the world with its venom. Now, Clay, you could just do so much better if you just didn't use the word Jew. Don't call them Zionists. Call them Bolsheviks. Well, maybe you better not call them communists. And there you go. There is the mainstream, and that is why I've been demonized. Why you've been demonized, because I can talk about that. And I have a little time understanding. If all of the Jewish-owned magazines, newspapers, television stations, and radio stations can talk about the Chinese and the Muslims and the Arabs and the ragheads, why can't we use the word Jew, which is exactly what they call themselves, Jews? Why can't we use that? I mean, that's even worse than the whole nigger thing, you know? I mean, I had a big black guy come up to me one time in a penthouse in Miami and say, "How do you feel about us black folks?" I said, "Well, I got real truthful with you, man. I don't like niggers, white or black."
Yeah, I think that's the same thing all the time. But the thing that really disturbs me with all these websites that inveigle people with all the astonishing stories going on now, or threats, they don't use the word Jew. They use a bunch of other words, but they just won't do it. And it's like, I keep going back to that famous philosophical line by George W. Bush. You have to keep repeating the propaganda to make it again, and that's why I did this last story. Because I'm getting really a whole lot, and I thought I dispensed with in the past, because I have the ultimate evidence to refute it permanently, that people want to say, "Oh, I know these good Jews. Look at this writer, and look at that writer, and they're working for us." And I'm telling you, they only seem to be working for us, because as long as you don't pinpoint the center of the problem, you're just going to let it continue. And I mean, it's metastasized and grown so far up now that it seems like a minor the opposition that gets deflected and distracted, and you get deceived into participating in a project that's not going to accomplish anything. I just saw a recent example of this when I haven't seen the official notification, but I've heard about it secondhand, where there's this supposedly big 9/11 skeptics conference going to go on in Vancouver. That's supposedly get to the bottom of the thing, and the people behind it are the very people who are promoting aliens and who are promoting this one worldness of we're all in this together. We are not all in this together. If we were all in this together, the vast majority of it would not be dying as we speak.
I've got a quote up here and a link on my website that I'm just going to move around a little bit. To learn who rules over you, simply find out who you are allowed to criticize. And that was Voltaire. How many years ago was that?
Well, about at least 400.
Well, wait a minute. That would mean. Thank you very much. One more here. We'll try to get this one back up because this one is the good one here over on TalkShoe. And I started the show 15 minutes early and recorded it. So let me get that back up.
Welcome to TalkShoe. Enter your PIN. You are now joining the call.
TalkShoe. Recorded live.
All right.
Unmuted.
We got everything back up now, it looks like, and working properly. I guess John Kamenski. Let's see if we got this one working here. Almost got it all working. That was really interesting, John. I mean, I had been on for an hour, nothing was wrong, everything was working properly. And suddenly you came on, and nothing worked anymore.
I have that effect on people. It's certainly something I'm familiar with. I mean, we've had a lot of problems, but I've also had problems in other places, if not from the radio hosts themselves or people calling in, then technical difficulties like this. So it's. I'm definitely used to it. It's really too bad. It cuts down the time that we can talk, that other people can hear. And I certainly appreciate anybody who's hanging on through all of this.
Well, we are still broadcasting and recording here. I'm just trying to get blog TV back up. And we have succeeded in doing that now. And I've started the recording again, so for this half hour, we'll be able to hear from John Kamenski. If you want to hear the whole show, it'll be up on Blog Talk Radio. And, all right. John, I started out the show and started the recording up on TalkShoe about nightmare days. That was your latest thing, and so I don't necessarily want to go back and repeat everything that we talked about, but one of the salient points that you made here, that the other day in Washington, a neocon stooge, when you say neocon, that's really the code word for a Jew, I think. This neocon stooge, who was that, by the way?
What was his name? Clausen, and I always call him Patrick Clausen. I think it is Patrick Clausen. Yeah, Patrick Clausen.
Okay. Go ahead, tell people what he said. People what he said.
He got up and it's easy to find this on YouTube, by the way. You get up and describe that World War I was started by the Lusitania, and it was the Lusitania event was planned to start World War I because they said it had no ammunition on board, but the Germans knew it did, so they blew it up. There were also all these passengers on board who weren't informed. Are you still there?
I'm here. I can hear you. I don't know what we lost. We must have lost something here.
And anyway, that started World War I. Pearl Harbor started World War II, and that was a fixed deal. All of those 2,200 American sailors who died there, Roosevelt knew that was going to happen and wanted that to happen, so he could declare war and start World War II in earnest. Clausen also mentioned the Gulf of Tonkin, and he also mentioned the little tiff at Fort Sumter during the Civil War as all being false flag operations. Are you there?
Yes, sir. I'm still here. We're losing one channel here. The good channel that I had up, the one that I wanted to record. That one keeps dropping. We keep dropping that call. Let me see if I can get that back real quick. Again, my guest is John Kamenski. We're talking about why does the media not use the word Jew? I mean, I guess we can do it. We can do that if we talk about it in code. If we call them Zionists, if we call them, I don't know. The question is, why are these people being prosecuted or any of this?
Yeah, that was the thing about 9/11. It's like everybody supposedly screwed up their security duties, and they all got promoted for it.
If sort of like the quote I had from Voltaire. Just saying working now. Okay. You can tell who your rulers are by who you're not allowed to criticize.
Well, it's been worse than that. Because the people who represent themselves as leaders of the opposition so eagerly describing the things that are happening in the world, Alex Jones is the typical example, but they never mention who's at fault. It's the same thing with the 9/11 skeptics. There was a concerted Jewish movement of Zionim to infiltrate all of the 9/11 groups, work their way to the top, and prohibit any discussion of Israel. Now that is been one giant step further in California, where the governor and the legislature have. I don't know if they've made a law, but they've certainly put out a call that any discussion negatively about Israel represents anti-Semitism, and the people who say these things are, I don't know if they're going to be expelled from college, but they're going to be severely penalized for doing it. And this is the mind lock that I've been talking about for 10 years, well, 7 or 8, where we are only allowed to say certain things. Thomas Jefferson said, freedom of the press cannot be limited in any way without being totally lost. And actually what he didn't know at the time was we never had freedom of the press, because throughout our history we've never been able to say really what needs to be said, which is that the country is not run by has never been run by our elected representatives. It has been run by the puppet masters who choose our elected representatives, and they, by the things they say, they limit debate as well. I mean, you need to look no further than the election that's going to take place in a few weeks, where both of the major candidates have staffs and advisors that are entirely composed of dual Israeli-American citizens. Which, for anybody who thinks being a citizen of two countries is really treason to both.
Yes.
Although in the case of dual citizen Israeli Americans, there should be no doubt in anyone's mind who their primary allegiance is to, and that's why the U.S. has been destroyed.
You know, you mentioned both world wars were in.
It was started by false flag deceptions. I didn't get to finish that part. The Gulf of Tonkin and the event that touched off the Civil War, which was firing on the ship at Fort Sumter. These were all deliberate provocations. And then Lawson, Neon, who was speaking in Washington, got up and said, maybe we should do the same thing in Iran and sink an Iranian submarine so they'd attack us. So not only was he admitting that all the wars were started deliberately and then reshaped in Jewish media to frame them as an attack on U.S. interests when it had been provoked by the Jewish-controlled U.S. Now he wants to do it in Iran, and that whole thing has gone to such a fever pitch, I can't imagine it not happening. And when it does, all bets are off. I'm reading all the stories now that China and Russia have got the United States really targeted. Plus, God, there was this story last night where this fellow was looking, I forget the store, whether it was a Walmart or a Home Depot, but there were all these generators, thousands of generators being shipped to New Orleans. What does that mean? That means the power is going to go out of New Orleans. We keep hearing the story about the sinkhole, which continues to spread and threatens to blow up because of all natural gas in the neighborhood. So we're in big trouble. Of course, everybody knows that, but there's still something we can do about it, but we don't have the balls to do it. And I've suggested it many times, is we need to take all the people who are now holding public office and drag them into the streets and literally tear them limb from limb so that they never do this again.
Well, you know, I don't agree with that entirely because I think that I'm lecturing this next weekend on Friday night at Brave New Books in Austin. I just did a local radio show in Austin, and I intend to talk about all of that. But the theme of my show is, my talk is, how do you fight evil without becoming evil?
The way I phrase it is that I don't believe in violence, but I do believe in self-defense, and I do believe in justice. And we have to act on both those impulses, because if we don't get rid of them, they're going to get rid of us, and they're well underway.
Let's talk about it, because I touched on this last Friday with Misa, wonderful guest, and they are poisoning us. They are killing us. We do, I mean, within this last 100 years, how many people have died of cancer? Those cancers, they've been new cancer-causing chemicals for 100 years almost. Back 100 years ago, you could go to the drugstore and get heroin. You could go to the drugstore and get cocaine, or you could go to the grocery store and get cocaine and your Coca-Cola. You could go to, the marijuana was grown all around the world, still is everywhere but here, and all of that suddenly changed, and now you go to a doctor to get a prescription for something they got more markup on than they do heroin.
That's right. Yeah, much higher. Plus, if the thing in the world that has caused the cancer doesn't get you, the cancer treatment will, because chemotherapy and radiation are designed to kill you slowly, so they take all your money before you die. And it's widespread knowledge. Now, you just have to look on the internet of all these cancer cures that exist that have been successful. It's mostly about diet. And if you eat the right foods, you'll never get cancer.
That's right. We've had doctors on the show many times that have cured themselves of cancer by stopping and taking on the medications.
That's it.
Now, I've got links up on my website. A couple of them. One Macau put out, and Macau's Jewish too.
No, I know.
From his site, he says, or he has someone by the name of Samuel Butler saying that Satanists have infiltrated most religions, almost all major churches. This is how you can live. Your church has sold out. The bigger the church, the less of God you'll feel there. Any church that talks about expanding his branches is in it for the money, period. And but he does go on to say that Satanism is the oldest religion on the planet. War has been declared on us all. Any religion of theirs is to be destroyed. And what they're talking about is Judaism.
Basically, yes.
He also kind of agrees with you here. He says no matter what religion they hide behind, whether it's Jew, Christian, Muslim, whatever religion or lack of it, if they all learn from and live by a satanic Bible, Talmud, or other satanic book, the people are evil. It's really simple. Call these people whatever you like, but if they walk like through the Talmud, these people run the world. This book is a book from Satanism. It's what all world leaders learn from. Matter of fact, they have the word Satan on the front of the Talmud they're printing now.
Yeah, Lucifer, that's right. I like to look at things from the perspective of the American Indian, who were pretty much obliterated by Christians over time, just about completely. I saw a dance they were doing on a YouTube in South Dakota where they were quite smug about it and quite happy because they see the white man as destroying himself by all the things that he does. And when all that is said and done, they're going to still be around doing their time-honored rituals and presumably be okay. Radiation didn't get them all. But that's the perspective I have, is that we're killing ourselves by the things that we're defending. We're defending our own killers. I mean, in this Jewish argument, you always get, even from non-Jews, because they don't know the deal, they say, oh, you can lump everybody into one class. Well, as a matter of fact, I can. Because when at the core of the town, the orders there are clear to kill or enslave everyone who's not on their team. And that's what they're doing in every country in the world. And yet, all of these people who are still making money at their job, working for the Jews, whether they know it or not, are fooling themselves and saying, oh, it's not all Jews. There are great Jewish writers out there. It's just the Zionists. Well, when somebody says that, all you have to do is point back to all the horrors that the Jews perpetrated before somebody thought of the idea of Zionism, which was Israeli in the mid-19th century. And prior to that, they were doing the same thing over and over. So the Jews used the phrase Zionism to hide behind it, to conceal their own identity from the crimes that they are committing.
You know, I've said that over and over again. I said these elitists, whatever you want to call them, elitist Satanists, and they do worship Lucifer or Satan in there, same way as the Mason, which shows you that the Masonic thing is Jewish too, right?
All of it. The whole thing. They also control all the religions. They invented all the religions, for God's sake. That's what the hidebound Christians are so afraid of hearing. That their worship of their God is to keep them passive, so they won't oppose the sinister bastards who are doing what they do. And that's what's happening. I get a real kick out of these pronouncements of these churchmen coming out now and saying, "Oh, you should take a stand against Israel." And I'm thinking, they can't take a stand against Israel because their very religion was created by Israel, created by the Jews.
Let me go. Let's go back here for a second, because you just hit on one of the things that I'm writing about in my next novels. You know, it's like What if Lucifer was the good guy and the devil, was pretending to be Yahweh?
I've had that thought. I mean, when you go back to the religion of Baal, and who used to be Bel, and he was the good god. And I have this sneaking suspicion. I'm really not educated enough to really see this, and I don't really know that anybody is, judging by the experts that I've read. But I have this funny feeling that it was the evil people who took the good doctrines of Baal and made them the enemy and pretended to be the good guys themselves. And this would be consistent with the typical Jewish inversion of values that Nietzsche spoke about and that has happened over time, where now it's manifesting as they're making a virtue out of illness and depravity and declaring good, righteous people to be the evil people because they're not accepting homosexuality and drug use and all that other stuff. And the whole thing has been flipped upside down. So it's no wonder. It's so small wonder that nobody can make sense of anything because everything has been turned upside down. We have homosexual presidents. The only people who get into Congress, and I mean the only people who get into Congress, are people who have been cleared by the Jewish puppet masters as suitable material to continue the scam that they've been perpetrating on humanity for 2,000 years.
Somebody on the chat room just said the Jews created Satan Lucifer to blame and project their crime zone.
Well, it could be.
I mean, what kind of God would, a universal God, a God that, and I certainly want to touch on this with you, because you are discovering what the mystics knew, that we're not really here, we're not as solid as we think we are. I mean, there's a lot of space in between those electrons and the nucleus of the atoms, isn't it?
You got to say that, and I think you lost me.
I said, well, if you get down to the very essence of the atom, what holds the atoms together? I mean, to me, that's God. That's the intelligent force that creates the matter, from the vibrations, from the sound, from the, in the beginning, there was the Word, and the Word created the Word. That's what the Bible says. They get the science all confused up because the Jews have gone in to hide the truth, and they want to demonize the mystic. They want to demonize the magician. They want to demonize. They want to make the Christians kill all the witches that are simply communicating on a DNA level with the world.
Yes, I agree with what you're saying, that you can't say there's no God because there are too many things we can't explain. You can profess, or if you profess to be an atheist, I will say to you, well, you create a seed that creates a flower, and I'll believe you. There are so many things we can't explain, and our bodies are smarter than our minds. Our bodies heal themselves. But we profess to know more, and all these Jewish scientists are saying we can extend life and improve this and improve that, and it is the definite wrong direction to be going in. We need to live in accordance with nature, according to nature's laws, and to try to change those is not only the ultimate insult to God, but it's a sure path to self-destruction.
I agree, and I said a lot often, my whole plan for Liberty Villages was basically to take us back to the days of the Indians. How did the Indians survive? If they, do you think the Indians 100 years ago were worried about EMP blast from the sun?
No, it's even to live like the Amish, very simply, and to resist the temptations of modern technology, because modern technology is a trap that leads us to not focus on what's really important and instead be diluted and diverted into all of these toys that are really self-destructive. I mean, it's like everybody has these electronic conveniences like computers and cell phones and all the other things without realizing the effects they're having on their health, how their very genes are being destroyed by these things. And it's almost useless to talk about this now because it's so everywhere, and we are so compromised that, if we look ahead 20 years into the future, assuming any of us are left around, the people who are left around are going to be seriously diminished by the diseases that they have caused themselves by their own technological inventions. And it's already happening now. I mean, how much of this cancer, it's like all of you were talking about cancer a while ago, all of the cancer that we have derived almost directly from two creations of Jewish scientists. They are petroleum science and atomic science. That's where all the cancer is coming from. And now, did you hear the latest one about the pills? Where all the pills that are going to be reproduced are going to have an RFID chip in them? This is nanotechnology that's so small they can't be detected. So the pills that you take for what ails you, not that they worked in the first place, but some of them do a little bit, all of those pills are going to contain something that will enable government to track you. And this is just another thing where freedom is going to be eliminated. Freedom pretty much has been eliminated. And you're not going to be able to do anything that doesn't meet with the approval of the people who control you. And that's pretty much in place now, too, only it's more psychological and petrochemical.
Yeah, one of my guests on here said we need to get back to the pagan roots we came from, respect nature again. Yeah, and that's actually the theme. That's the kicker. That's the kind of the tagline for my talk. How do you fight evil without becoming evil? And that I'm going back to my whole Liberty Village concept, and the concept for Liberty Village. We done the same way Brad Pitt and Angela Jolie did it in New Orleans. You go into a neighborhood, you put solar panels and wind generators on the roof, you make the houses generate income for the inhabitants. You go into the backyard, plant gardens, and you grow food, and you're not hurting nobody. You ain't killing nobody. And if you're band together with your neighbors, then you can protect yourself and defend yourself, and then we can summon up the militias, because that's us. The Jews have tried to they started attacking me on before I had any idea who the Jews were, what they were.
Yeah, me too, really.
With my militias, and I did it in the governor Gary Johnson's office, who he's running for president now. If you the evil voting for the lesser of two evils is still voting for evil. So Gary Johnson is the only choice that you've really got.
He seems to be the best choice. But getting back to what you said about going back to our roots, how I take that a little further is the fact that our roots are rotten. We can wax poetic about the white settlers of America and how they had best lives and joined the Grange and worked cooperatively and all this, but we also have to remember that they failed to see the wisdom of what the Native Americans were doing, and not that they were perfect. I mean, they used to beat the shit out of each other on a regular basis, but they had this spiritual respect for nature, where before they killed an animal for food, they asked the Creator for permission to do it, and gave thanks afterwards. And that's not something we do when we buy cardboard food in a supermarket. We have to remember You know, there's a rabbi, I mean, all rabbis get under my skin and piss me off, but there's one in particular who, like so many Jewish liberals, pretend to be for freedom and liberty when they're really not. And Michael Lerner, the guy who does Tikkun magazine, used the defense of Israel's slaughter of the Palestinians as nothing more than the way we white Europeans treated the Indians when we came here. So it was okay for us to do that, so it's okay for them to do what they're doing.
Well, let me ask you this real quick here. Aren't we the Palestinians today? I mean, right here in the United States, they're turning the propaganda on Christians. They're going to do the same thing to the Christians here. This is why they built the concentration camps. This is why they built the detention centers. They're going to do the same thing to us that they've done to the Palestinians. And what they've done in Gaza and the West Bank is basically the same thing that they're doing with the cities. They're turning our cities, New York, Houston, Phoenix, and L.A. into ghettos. They're confining us to the ghettos. They're driving us the wildlands. They're driving us out.
That's all true. I mean, you only have to take a look at it of hundreds, if not thousands, of American cities to see this. And plus, the whole Jewish corpus of thought comes from the ghetto. It comes from the Warsaw Ghetto. And this is what's familiar to them. This is what they're comfortable with. This is what they've turned Israel to, even though the parts that they have conquered, which is virtually all of it, are spiffy and plastic and supposedly sanitary and shiny and all that other stuff. But Israel is characterized by the walls it has put up, by the segregation it has perpetuated, and by the vicious behavior that allows them to actually kill children, to steal organs, to prop up the fading lives of old Jewish people. And if that isn't the most disgusting thing you ever heard, I know there's a lot of competitors, but are these the people we want to be living with? Not me. You know, I've come to believe that we can't live this life for ourselves. It doesn't make sense. Everything we get in this life that's wonderful, we get from other people. So it's incumbent upon us, since we're only here for a little while, to work for the betterment of those people. And that is something that is just utterly alien to the Jewish perception of reality. With them, it's all toys. They want as many toys as they can get, and they do get a distinct pleasure out of making other people hurt. There is a sadistic side to the Jewish religion that is absolutely frightful, and they have convinced the whole lot of Americans that this is the way to behave, and this is why we see American troops going overseas and killing families, laughing about it, playing rock music as they rape little children. And, it's like the vast majority of Americans don't want to look at it, and they'll say to me, oh, you're crazy for saying such a thing. And I'm not the one who's crazy. I'm the one who can see. They're the ones who are blind, deliberately blind, and they don't see that their blindness is going to cause the same thing happen to them, which is now already doing.
All right, hold on just a second. All right, that one's in the can. That one's in the can. They didn't succeed in blocking that one and canceling that one, but great. We got that, and we're recording again, and my guest is John Kamenski, and we're talking about the Jewish mindset. And let me just jump back here just a second. We touched on a little bit of history. And if you click on go to my website, freeamerican.com, and it'll be near the show with John. You need to pass it around. But I've got a comprehensive history of Zionist crimes that starts with the Khazar Zionism, Holocaustianity, World War I, the Bolshevik Revolution, World War II, the King David hotel attack in 1946, proclamation of an independent state of Israel in 1948, the Forrestal assassination in 1949, the Lavon affair in 1954, the JFK assassination in 1963, the U.S. Liberty attack in 1967, Operation Trojan, 1986, that was the Libya frame. Pan Am 103 bombing over Lockerbie, 1988. 20th century false flag and assassination. Egypt Air in the Atlantic Ocean, 1999. The Apollo moon landings in 2001. A fake conspiracy. 9/11, a crime of the century in 2001. Guantanamo Bay, 9/11. Motives for Afghan-Iraq wars. Pearl Harbor, David Kelly assassination, 2003, Madrid, 3/11 bombings, U.S. phony presidential election in 2004, and that's happening again, folks. You have no choice unless you vote for Gary Johnson. You got no choice. Zionist A or Zionist B. We've also got the London train and bus bombings in 2005, the Bali bombings in 2005, Jordan bombings in 2005, Egyptian ferry scene in 2006. This is all attributable to Israel and the attacks on Gaza in Lebanon, where they used cluster bombs on civilians in Gaza in 2006. Did I miss anything, John?
The thing we really need to be talking about now, it's like a lot of people already know this chronology, and you've only mentioned a small part of it, is the Jews who live in New York, who live in San Francisco, who live in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, who live in Miami Beach. These are people who control American society and remain behind the scenes as they give, like Sheldon Adelman, the Israeli billionaire who funds all these puppet American politicians that is now named Romney after trying to fund Newt Gingrich. Their corruption has completely overwhelmed Washington, has completely overwhelmed the whole country. And really the major way that they have accomplished this is by their media, which gets people to participate in worthless, self-destructive endeavors that actually work to prevent them from seeing what's really happening in their lives. And so we have all these people who are more concerned with drag races and tractor pulls and dances and all of these things that keep them from seeing the murder plot that is aimed at their own selves. And as a result of all the propaganda that comes from the media, they actually defend the people who are trying to kill them, who are killing them. And this is the real bind that America is in. And I see no way out at this point because there simply aren't enough people who recognize this. And as a result, we're all going to be destroyed either regularly by police on steroids or by our doctors who keep prescribing these poisons, or by things that we think are cool and we do that wind up killing us. So I see no way out of this. It's like nobody trusts anybody else. Everybody's hung down. And that's just the way they want us. Because
they try to do that. The internet, rather than bring us together, they've used it to divide us, to set us apart. And divide and conquer is the oldest rule in warfare, and we are at war.
We've lost the war, Clayton. We've lost the war. People have no balls. People have no desire to see the truth. They only want to anesthetize themselves from their own fear. They'll use any diversion or any addiction to do it. We're all trapped in one kind of addiction or another. Some people have an addiction to patriotism, and I think that's the most ridiculous thing of all, because there's nothing about America worth defending at this point. All of the wars we've fought haven't been for freedom. They've been to make money for the Jewish bankers.
Well, I volunteered in Vietnam. I don't believe there was an expiration date on that oath that I took. I think our founding fathers set this country up to be a good country, a fair country.
Well, it didn't matter. It didn't matter quite so much when you had all this so-called wilderness to spread out upon. They could control it all for a long time, but as time has passed, we've spread out over the whole country. We've eliminated the indigenous peoples, herded them onto these reservations in possible sections of the country, and nobody can see that it's our own behavior that's precipitating our destruction. And it's happening now, and people still can't see it. They still can't wake up.
By the way, on the chat room here, Coca-Cola says, John, I enjoyed your last email about the moon landings.
Yeah, well, I have a friend who's a better scientist than I am, who just listed a whole string of things that made it impossible for people to go beyond 500 miles up in the atmosphere. There's no way to defend against that radiation, no matter how they spin it. There's no way anybody could survive. And I mean, there are so many anomalous objections to the presentation of the moon landings that have presented at this point. And that's just another thing that people don't want to believe. They've got the myth squarely in their head. They think they're comfortable. They still have enough to eat. And they say, oh, I'm not going to invest in that because that's going to challenge everything I know. But it's long past time that we all challenge everything that we know, because most of the information that we've taken in this lifetime is utterly false. Beginning with the fact that there is a way to forestall death, and that if you say the right prayers and follow the right rituals, you can live forever. And that is the biggest scam that was ever perpetrated on the human race, and you can count on that being a Jewish intent.
That's right. And, you know, I've asked myself, what about this? Now, bear in mind, I work with Timothy Bible College. I support Timothy Bible College because you can actually get an education there. You can graduate from high school at 16 if you work at it. You know, you can progress at your own rate. And I support the Way Church. We had a great meeting at the Way Church yesterday on Sunday, and Pastor Jake Wade was there. And basically, we all sat around the music studio and talked. And we talked about what was right, what we could do to help. That was a productive meeting, not like going to the organized churches, nothing like that. I don't like those. I don't like the feel of it. I know what they do. And but that's the religions that were created. Christianity is probably the best. That led to the creation of the Constitution here, and hadn't been easy because there's that tendency. Because we're influenced by their media, we tend to start thinking like the Jews. It's called programming, brainwashing, isn't it?
Definitely.
And that's what we're happening now. That's happening to us right now. Now, there's got to be we got to work together some way, and that's why all these organizations were started all of these organizations are started this way. Let's go back to moon landing here. We just mentioned that. Somebody mentioned that. You want to show that because that's part of the propaganda. They want you to believe something that simply ain't true. Can't be true. Remember the flag waving in the moon in the no atmosphere moon.
You get the shadows going in two directions. I always like that part.
Your friend was a more of a scientist than you. What was his conclusion? That the cameras melted, the heat differentiated from between the hot and the cold?
Well, I think the basic thing is, and this is what I've always known, I've known this for 20 years, that above 500 miles, we hit the Van Allen radiation belt, And that's why all the things that are orbiting up there now are underneath that, because nobody could survive in that. And the only way you could protect yourself is to encase yourself in like 6 feet of lead, and there's no way to propel that off the face of the planet. It's too heavy, so it's impossible to do. I just got a note from somebody who said that, I'm sure they went to the moon. He can't answer this question. You can't survive in outer space because you're not protected from the radiation that comes from the sun. It would make you sick real quick, and you wouldn't survive very long. And that's why we're never going to Mars by these conventional means. We have to figure out another way to do it, and that's a tall order, because it's just impossible to survive out there with the radiation. There's no way to protect you. We have not devised a way to protect ourselves from it. Now, all these scientists say, we got all these new techniques that would do it, but they won't. It's just a ruse to perpetrate this fraud. And I wanted to mention something. Back in the day, the early 9/11 skeptics movement, a strange fellow named Eric Hush was one of the first ones out with information. And shortly thereafter, he tried to link the moon hoax to the 9/11 hoax. And I got very upset about that, because trying to prove one hoax to people was hard enough. But to try to prove two mind-boggling hoaxes at the same time to people, it's just, it hasn't happened yet, so it's virtually impossible. But they are both of the same kind of psyop, where we make these fantastic claims and create all this evidence to back them up. And I'm kind of glad Neil Armstrong is dead now, because I think that's the reason he didn't speak publicly for most of these years. He kept as much about what was really going on and didn't want to talk about it too much, because he knew it was a hoax. And because he was one of the main participants in it. But again, this goes back, as I'm saying, with not enough time to really get into it now, but it goes back to a basic belief system that made us think that it was okay to massacre the Indians, that it's okay to exploit the blacks in Africa because we're smarter, because we've had a lucky upbringing in the colder climate that made us more resourceful, that it's okay for us to treat these people as animals and kill them and rape them as we please. And that's really the thing that we have to look at, and that's really the thing that has caused us to be in the predicament we're in. It's not treating other people, and I hate to go Jesus on you, but here it is, not treating other people the way we treat ourselves is really the basic problem of the world.
This is what we're really working for. I actually don't have the quite a negative of view as you, John. I think that as long as there is human will and there are good people that are trying to, that I don't want to rule nobody. I don't want to hurt nobody. I want to be left alone, and I am capable of defending myself. I don't want to be attacked. I don't want to be slandered. I don't want to be harassed, and I don't want to be forced into anybody's religion. As far as I'm concerned, all of these religions have all been formed by control freaks out there, and we know who the control freaks are. Pointed that out pretty well, I think.
Well, like I say,
if they had the power that they want us to believe they have, we never would have had this country formed. We wouldn't have. There has been changes, and I think we are presenting the truth to people by having you on my show. I'll Skip Baker on tomorrow, and he'll be confirming what you've said, except from more of a biblical point of view. And the Bible was written by men just like us, and I've got your articles and everything up on the website because I think you're probably closer to God than Benny Hinn or any of these TV preachers out there.
I like to think that because we are in daily communication.
Well, it's true, I mean, and the Bible backs that up. The Bible backs that up. I got no problem believing that your ancestors and my ancestors got tired of being in slavery in Syria and walked out and crossed the Caucasus Mountains and went out and conquered the world. I got no problem that, according to Skager tomorrow, that'll be that we were the original Israelites. We were the ones, and the Jews stole our identity.
Yeah, I agree with that part of what he says. I like Skip. We only have minor theological differences. But it's very true. It's a very important point that he brings out. I take it deeper than he does, but as far as he goes, he's right on with that. That the Khazarian Jews have pretty much stolen the legacy of the Israelites and made themselves the Israelites and deceived everybody in the process. Now, the fact of the matter is I have a problem with the Israelites as well, but we'll save that for another time.
All right. It's we're just about out of time.
Thank you, Clayton. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I sure appreciate you being on my show. John Kamenski, and the links to all the sites are up there. So let's check that out. And thanks again. Bye.
Thanks, Clayton. See you later.